Hey, I'm Stephen Glosser.
And I'm Megan Pikert.
Welcome to the Going Somewhere podcast,
A podcast for anyone who finds themselves in the ambiguous adventure of young adulthood.
a season that's marked by uncertainty, change, love, heartbreak, and a whole lot of big decisions.
Join us for some real conversations as we dig into what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus in this beautiful yet complicated season of life.
We're so glad you're here, and we'd love to have you join our little Going Somewhere podcast community. Follow us on Instagram at goingsomewhere.podcast and join the conversation.
We're all going somewhere. We might as well go there together.
Thanks for listening. Let's jump into today's episode. This week's episode of the Going Somewhere podcast. What's up, Megan?
Hey, how's it going?
Great. Great to have you, and great to have you listening, everybody. Megan, we got to catch up a little bit. You just went on a big trip. You were in Nebraska visiting some people. How was that?
It was so fun. Yeah, I think one thing about the season I'm in is all of my friends live all over the world, all over the country, everywhere. And so it was super fun. I got to see my friend Carly and my friend Sammy, who her and her husband just had a baby a couple weeks ago.
Aww.
So it's so fun. It was so fun to see them.
You have like a significant role in that baby's life.
Yes, I am the godmother to little Finn. It's so cute. I love it so much.
The godmother makes you feel like super official.
Yes.
All I think of is the Godfather when I think of that. I know I shouldn't. Like, I know it's a very normal thing.
Yeah.
But I think of just like a very intense person. But
yeah, it's really exciting. I'm really excited just to get to be more involved in that family and everything. But it was super fun just to get to go visit them, get to see where they go grocery shopping and where they work.
The important things in life.
Yeah, what are they doing on their day to day instead of a phone call, getting to hear about it. So it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. We just gave Carly some shout outs on a recent episode. So you got to see somebody we just talked about. That's kind of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wasn't lying. I am really good friends with Carly. She's had a huge impact on my life. Yes, it is legit. We are actually friends. So it's been really fun. And I hope I get to see them soon. And then another one of my friends is getting married today, also long distance. So if anyone can relate to that you have friends that don't live where you live right now.
Also, she's getting married. We're recording this on a Tuesday.
Right.
And
yes.
so let's clear something up here.
Yeah. I'm not a horrible friend. It's a Tuesday. I couldn't take off work. I'd have to fly, logistics that made it hard.
That is like friendship 101 in young adulthood. And that's what we're talking about today. But that's kind of crazy. Like, you're talking about going to see your best friends. And I know when you were there, you actually texted me and you like asked me, how do you do this? Because you've sensed that like some of these people that you're closest with do live long ways away. And I think that's a realistic aspect of friendship in young adulthood. You go to college or high school or whatever, and then everybody goes their separate way, yet you've shared all these experiences and these memories and these moments that really draw people close. Then you don't live close. And it's kind of like a difficult thing to balance. And I think that's kind of why we want to talk about friendship. I would say that is the most talked about or asked about thing that we kind of come across on the podcast and just in conversations with young adults is, how do you friend? How do you do friendship in this season? And it's kind of funny because I was with a bunch of teenagers yesterday, which is great. And I was teaching them about friendship, and doing this today is going to be a lot different than being in a big room with teenagers who are on their phones and messing around the whole time, but it's a good time. And so I realized that this is not just a young adult thing. It's everybody, and the tools and how we develop this is really important. So I'm excited to talk about it today for sure.
Yeah. I think you speaking on it yesterday to a bunch of high school students just made me realize that we all have the same concern. We all want friends. We all want community. And we're all wanting to build healthy friendships and be a healthy friend and be a good friend to those around us. So it's a common thing that we're all going through no matter what stage of life that you're in. And so I'm excited. Let's talk about it.
For sure. And what was funny is it was like a cold entry into this teaching environment. They were doing like a spiritual emphasis day. It's a Christian school. And nobody introduced me or anything. So I just like went up and grabbed the mic and started talking. And I was like, I am talking about this subject because I have 30 plus years of friendship experience, both good and bad. And so hopefully in this episode, we can kind of share some of our own experiences. We're also going to kind of dive into Just a really cool thing that I've kind of seen in the life of King David in his friendships. But first, we want to actually answer some of our listeners' questions. Our listeners have reached out with some questions about friendship. We're not going to be able to answer them all today, but we want to answer a couple of them. What are some of the questions?
Yeah, the first question we thought was super applicable is we are young adults who want to have friends, but we have no energy after an 8-hour workday. I think we can all relate to that. And so we just want to know, how can we combat that? How can we still pursue people, still love people, even though we've had a really full day and maybe people haven't seen that side of our day? So.
For sure. I mean, I think this is one of the biggest changes that happens between like high school or college and that next phase, which is working several hours a week and upholding multiple responsibilities, because college is busy. I never want to downplay that. But you have a lot of free time, and a lot of your time, your busy time, is with your friends. And so I think that this is one of those hurdles that people have to get over. And I think there's a couple things. One is expectations. Your friendships will change. The ability to sit for 8 hours is just not realistic. So if that's your framework and your mind about friendship is just a ton of quality time, and I know there's people that are high quality time, like that's how their love tank gets filled. It's an adjustment of expectations to recognize that isn't probably going to work anymore. So I think it requires a ton of intentionality, and it also requires a ton of commitment, because at the end of a work day, you don't always have energy. You don't always have like the motivation, but it's the same with anything like good in our lives. Motivation can't be the only driver of like, I feel like I want to invest energy into a friendship, because that's what it is. It takes a lot of energy. And I would say the thing that I think about with this too is, as a parent, it's kind of the same thing, but I view it differently probably because I don't have a choice. Like, I have to be a good dad. I have to be a good husband. So when I get home after a long day, no matter how stressful it was, no matter what went on, I have a responsibility for a few hours to really invest and to really be available, to be present, to not be distracted, and to love. And I think that's a great habit to form, even if it's a couple days a week, as a friend, of just saying, "Look, I can give a few hours because I know how beneficial it is."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so good. I heard one time, I'm going to butcher the quote. I think it's in Atomic Habits, but it says, like, you do what you need to do, not what you want to do. And a lot of times, what I want to do when I get off work is go lay in bed. I would like to take a nap. I would like to not go grocery shopping. I would like to just have a chill night. But what I know that I need to do is I need to be in community. I need to go grocery shopping. I need to do my life outside of work too. And so I think one huge thing that's helped me combat maybe I feel like I have no energy, but I know that people are worth pursuing, and I know that I need people that are going to help pursue me. And so not doing what I want to do, but doing what I need to do.
I think one of the biggest things that I've kind of advocated for in my life, and I've started to tell other people, is when it's the hardest is when we need it the most. So when friendship is the hardest, when it's the least convenient, when we are the busiest and we have the most balls up in the air, that's when we actually need friendship and community the most. Because I think you almost have to go back to like, what is the purpose of a friend? And I mean, we're not going to go here, but obviously, what was the purpose of Eve? Eve was a companion. It was not good for Adam to be alone, and so God gave him Eve. And obviously that's in the context of marriage, but also in the context of humanity, that we need people, and we need people that can encourage us, to lift us up, to point us to Jesus, to just to be there physically present with us. And when it feels like that's the last thing we have energy and time for, is probably like a good indicator that we desperately need it. And so that's just a mantra I've kind of adopted for the whole season of parenting a 6'4" and a 2-year-old. It's just like, yeah, it ain't convenient to gather in a group setting and to give a Saturday morning up, to meet with a group of young families and stuff, but I've recognized that we all need it because it is so hard and it is so difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So good. So good. Another question that was submitted by one of our listeners is, what's a realistic adult friendship look like? And I think that this is just a really good question. Like you said, you already spoke to expectations, setting expectations, but what expectations should we be setting as young adults that are going into a new season with new friendships?
I think even before expectations is probably communication too. Is, you know, I suppose it's probably after expectations, because expectations are, all right, I need to realize that it's not the same as it used to be. And so I need to set an expectation. Maybe it's, I want to set 2 nights aside and part of my weekend to really spend time with friends. But then how do I communicate that? Because there's going to be people that are in a different season, a different stage. They have less or more time than you. And so it's also being able to communicate with people, hey, this is how I need you to be my friend, or how I want you to be my friend, and creating the opportunity for the boundaries conversation. But I think if we don't hone in on those expectations and then communicate them, it's really hard to have adult friendships, because the realistic part of it is that because of the limited time and space that we have, it takes a lot more intentionality. So I think things like this, like, do you have a lunch break for your job, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour? Are you able to go away for lunch, or are you able to pack a lunch and meet with a friend who is also a coworker? Other things are, do I have a built-in thing? I think one of the greatest things that you can do is have a schedule for friendship. And that sounds awful because friendship feels spontaneous, but when it's difficult, you need that. And so every Tuesday night, I get together with this group of people. We always go to beat-ups on Thursdays, or we always meet for small group or life group on Wednesdays at this time, because that's people I can count on. That's how I view my life groups, is like, I don't always get to see some of my best friends. Like, we can go weeks and months at this point. We all have kids. We're all busy. We work full time. But I do have this group that I know I can see. I know that's going to pray for me. I know that's going to be there. So building in the consistency of it and just pulling out the legwork and the guesswork, because that's the hard part when you don't have energy. The hard part is getting home at 6 and then looking at your phone going like, who should I text? And then you get rejected 3 times and then you just give up because you're like, well, I can just throw on Netflix and, you know, Michael Scott could be my friend. he loves Friends. That's why he wanted children. And so I think that's part of it. The hurdle is the planning part of it. And you can still have spontaneous friendship. And that's probably one of my favorite parts, is we have friends that we don't hang out planned. It's usually a 5:30 text. What are you guys doing for dinner? And we've actually like scrapped food that we're cooking to go do something with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. I remember it was probably about a year ago now, sitting in this office, and I was talking to you about friendships because I had just moved back recently, and I was struggling to make friends. I couldn't figure it out. I was like, I'm being so intentional. I'm getting coffee with all these people, and there's one girl that I really want to like be friends with. And you were like, you're just so simple, and you just said, well, have you told her you want to be her friend? And I was like, no.
Does simple mean dumb? Or no?
No. I was just like,
Both, okay.
Oh, it's so simple. Like, she doesn't, like, yeah, I have not asked her to be my friend. I have not said, hey, I would like to be friends. Will you be intentional with me? And I remember going back, getting coffee with her and saying just that of, hey, I want to be your friend. Will you be intentional with me too? And now we're roommates. That was good old Cara Burke. So
that's amazing.
Super fun. But I remember just being like, oh, it is that simple of just communicating the expectation that you want, and also having the right people that are ready that want to step into that with you too.
What does this look like in your life right now? You are working full time. You work 8 hours or more, and then you get home. And what does this look like for you? Like, what does a realistic adult friendship look like for Megan Piker?
Ooh, good question. I think I'm also extremely introverted. So having relationship and being around people isn't always my go-to. And so I have to be even more intentional with it than I think the average person. My brother, who could be around people for 80 hours a day. But
That's true.
Yeah. And But I think it's caused me, like you said, putting systems in place. And so right now on my calendar, actually Tuesday nights are blocked on my calendar for 4 hours. That just says friendship. And most of the time it's going over to a group of friends' house. We watch Dancing with the Stars on Tuesdays. But also it's maybe I'll go out for dinner with someone that day. It's just a day of my week that I have blocked off that I will make plans if I can and try to. It's a day I try not to be at my house. I try to get out, try to do something after work. And so that's been really helpful. Something else that's worked really well for me that maybe schedules allow for work, but meeting with people before work has also helped a ton. I'm a morning person. I enjoy that. And then I can still feel like, okay, at the end of my workday, when I'm tired, I'm mentally just checked out for the day, I can have my evening because I know that I can give people a better version of myself in the morning than I could at night when I feel already exhausted about my day. So that's been 2 things that have really helped me in the season. What about you?
I would say, a lot of similarities because the intentionality piece, especially, I think the one thing that we've juggled and that I've realized, and my friend Alyssa actually helped me realize it, is that like we do only have limited capacity in our life for relationship, and I think sometimes that's part of what we have to learn is that I am not an infinite human who has infinite love and infinite, ability to connect with people. And so my friend Alyssa really helped show like you have 4 people in your home that are your primary relationships. And that was just a little, that was like grace, but also it made me realize that I want to be really wise with those times that I have. And part of that is Taylor and I have really learned to communicate in this area, but also advocate for each other. So telling her, hey, find a time this week to go out with friends, to do something with friends, sometimes it's after bedtime, sometimes it's during dinner, whatever. And she's the same with me, just giving each other a lot of grace to recognize that this is something we need. And is it always convenient to do bedtime alone, with 3 kids? No, it's not. But it's part of mental health. It's part of spiritual health. It's part of emotional health and all of those things. And so making it a priority. I think another thing that I do is I like going to sporting events. And this is something I've learned in the last year or two. There's a big stretch of time where my friendships, it was drinking coffee or eating food and just talking. And I still do that. But one thing that I realized that I need is activity. And so that could be playing basketball. But we've really enjoyed going to NDSU basketball games. We've really enjoyed just watching sports and stuff. So I was just watching the World Series with 3 of my best friends. And it was just like a text that went out a few days before because we don't do as many spontaneous things. And so I think it's that. And then also recognizing for me that there's just people that I'm not going to be as close to as I want to be or as I was. And there's hurdles that I want to continue to get over, be really strategic about building time for them, but also recognizing that there's some people that our schedules just do not align and our seasons or whatever. So just navigating that is difficult. Another kind of area that we want to dive into is kind of a biblical model, because I think the area of friendship is one that we could go 1,000 directions. And that's why we would love for you to share more questions so that when we are able to talk about friendship on the podcast, we can dive into some more of these questions and really gear it towards the things that you're thinking about. So if you have questions, DM us, goingsomewhere.podcast on Instagram, or go goingsomewherepod.com. You can also submit questions there. So we'd love to have your questions shape the future episode. Hey everybody, we want to tell you about something really exciting happening here in Fargo, North Dakota. We've got Rhythm Conference 2025 coming up February 7th and 8th. And this is a 2-day gathering that is totally designed for you, young adults. This is an opportunity for you to make some friends, to grow in your relationship with God, and really be stretched as we make a difference in this world.
Yeah, we are so excited for all of us to be able to gather together in community, spend time with Jesus, and with our after parties, breakouts, guest speaker, Pastor Kirk Graham from River Valley Church. It's going to be an awesome time.
Yeah, we'd love to have you join us. We've got a seat saved for you. All you got to do is go to rhythmconf.com to reserve your seat, to register today. Price is only $50 for the whole weekend. You get everything, you get a meal. It's going to be an awesome time, but the price goes up December 31st, so get your tickets while they're hot. We'll see you at RhythmConf 2025. Today, we're going to really talk about the life of David and the 3 friendships that really formed him and shaped him.
Yeah. This is kind of what you spoke about with the high school students yesterday. And I was in listening and I was like, man, I just have never noticed this before. Like the people that David surrounded himself with and their qualities. And so I'm excited to jump into it. The first person that we're going to look at in David's life is his friend Samuel. And Samuel was a friend who saw the best in David. And so the question I want to ask you and maybe have you expand a little bit on is, why is it important to have people in our life that see the best in us, that want the best for us, and call that out in us?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at the life of David, Samuel was a prophet who God appointed to select the next king and to identify the next king. And so he went to the house of Jesse, which is where God told him to go. And Jesse lined up all the sons from, in my mind, it's tallest to shortest and bravest. And, he goes down the line and none of them are the one that God has. And he says to Jesse, like, do you have any other sons? And he's like, well, yeah, I do, but he's a shepherd and he's out in the field and he's little and he's tiny and don't worry about him. And he's like, no, go get him. And he gets David, and that's who God identified. And he said that God doesn't look at the outward appearance, God looks at the heart. And so I just recognize that even when Jesse and his brothers, or David's brothers, didn't identify and see potential in David, God did, and Samuel did. And so I think that's why it's so important, is to recognize that our friendships are an opportunity to bring out the best in each other and to see like God's handiwork on their life. And as a Christian, as a follower of Jesus, like that's a great opportunity to be used in a way that I can pull the diamonds out of the rough, to maximize people's potential, to see things inside of people that they can't see in themselves. I know in every one of those situations in my life, it's improved my friendship. When we are able to look at each other and go, I don't just see you for your political beliefs. I don't just see you for how you are as a dad or how you are as a husband or whatever the case is, or how good you are at basketball. No, I see something that God has put in you, and I see it as a goal of my own to pull it out of you.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. That's so good. Do you have a person in your life? I know you shared yesterday, you had a friend that always called you Pastor Steven before you were even a pastor, which I just love this story. And so how did that shape you, having someone see something in you that you weren't yet even thinking about?
Yeah, my friend Carlina in college, she was leading worship at the time for our college ministry for Chi Alpha. And I was at that time not necessarily doing a ton of stuff. I would go to pre-service prayer and I would serve in a variety of ways, but Carlina always called me Pastor Steven, and I would kind of shrug it off and laugh it off. And this was before I ever felt a call to ministry, or really, I guess more so accepted a call to ministry. But she just spoke life over and over and over again. And I've reminded her of that many times because she saw something in me and called it out of me before I noticed it in myself or was willing to accept it. I really do believe that a part of me navigating my call to ministry in general was having Carlina, this leader, this person I admired, this person I respected, this sister, in a lot of ways, saying and seeing something in me that brought out the best in me. And I wanted to, when I accepted that, I was like, man, that's powerful. Like how we can do that for other people. Do you have any examples in your life of friends that have saw the best in you and called you higher?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, we love Carly. We talk about her a lot, apparently, but I think she's the first person that came to mind as well, of kind of a similar story of when I came to her and was like, I think I have a call of ministry on my life. And she was like, absolutely, you do. She was ready to affirm. She was ready to affirm the leadership potential that she saw and everything like that. And so I think that also seeing the best in someone is also affirming. Like when they step into something that you see them doing really well, it's coming alongside them and saying, you're very gifted in that, you're very good at that, like the Lord is going to use you in this way. And she's the first person that I thought of that really saw something in me that I was nervous to see in myself too. And so, yeah, when we are talking about this, we also want to give you guys opportunities to reflect on your own friendships and maybe the people that you have in your life or the people that you want in your life, and also how you can do this for other people. And so, some questions to just be thinking about is, do your friends make you better? Do they call you higher in your life? As well as thinking it in the opposite way of, do I make my friends better? Do I call them higher? Am I someone that sees the best in the people around me? Am I willing to point out their giftings and encourage them in that way? And so Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. And I love that. I love that verse. I think it's pretty common friendship verse, but I love it for a lot of different reasons. One, it just shows that we sharpen each other.
Yeah.
But I also remember reading this one time and thinking, man, that probably hurts to like sharpen someone else. Sometimes sharpening someone is sharing blind spots that they might have,
Right.
or sharing the positive things in their life as well. And so I think that there's an extra intimacy in friendship when we choose to sharpen the people around us, to be more like Jesus.
For sure. I think navigating that in your own life is what is important. Is people listening today, just think about your friendships, and are they friendships in which you call each other higher? Are they friendships in which you have taken time to recognize callings, anointings, passions on their life and spoke into those? I have a friend, Ashley, who she does this on a recurring basis. She's just shown up in some of my areas of passion and excitement and just been a huge advocate. And I've tried to do the same for her. She runs a nonprofit, and I got the opportunity to MC for her big fundraiser this past year. And it was like so fun to not only do it because I love doing those events and it's just really fun to be a part of causes that you care about, but for her to like hold her arms up in a way and come alongside her in her vision in a way that I can was super fun. And I think the kind of a way to think about this is, in order to build better friendships, we must begin to see people the way that God sees them. We have to begin to see people the way that God sees them and then call them higher. What's the second friend that we need based on the life of David?
Yeah, the second friend that we need in our life is a friend who shows up for you. And we see this in David's friend Jonathan, and who was a part of a huge section of David's life when he was going through a lot of turmoil and scary things that were really daunting in his time. So how did Jonathan show up for David in his life?
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan was Saul's son. And so Saul was the king before David. Saul done messed up. No more king. And really the way that culture worked, and the idea was that the kingdom would be passed from son, or from father to son. That was just kind of the way of the world. That was the idea. And so Jonathan was really next in line. He was the heir to the kingdom, to the throne, yet God identified David. And so Jonathan, as Saul's son, could have felt a variety of different things. He could have felt envy and jealousy and comparison and all those nasty things. He could have let those drive him. And that's what drove his dad, Saul, to the point of actually wanting to kill David. Like, Saul was pursuing David's life, but Jonathan was loyal to David. He faithfully supported him. He rejected comparison and envy. He was vulnerable and real with David. And there's a couple instances that have really stuck out to me. In 1 Samuel 18, David and Jonathan, it says that Jonathan became one in spirit with David and loved him as himself. And from that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return home to his family. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. I think there's this difference between convenient friendship and covenant friendship. Like, convenient friendship is, I will be there when it works out in my favor, that when there's reciprocal things taking place, it's a give and take. But covenant friendship is attaching ourselves and being loyal and loving no matter what. And Jonathan was in that position. He didn't get a ton out of it. He was losing a ton for his friendship with David. And I think that's like a powerful thing, is as followers of Jesus, we can make covenant friendship with people that we love no matter what, that we serve no matter what, that we reject that comparison. We reject envy at all costs.
That was good. I feel convicted. I was like, as you were talking, I'm like, ooh, am I a convenient friend or a covenant friend? And so I'm just going to take that with me, reflect on that a little bit later.
Well, and on top of that too, like in 1 Samuel 23, Saul is literally pursuing David, trying to kill him, and Jonathan shows up where David is basically hiding. And it said, as Saul's son, Jonathan went to David at Horesh and helped him find strength in God. Like, that aspect of friendship is something that we cannot pass over, is that as friends, we have the ability to help people find strength in God. Like, that is one of the most defining aspects of a Christian friendship, is that when you're going through a tough time, I can come alongside you and help find strength in God. Normal friendships will most likely go, oh, poor you, let's get them. let's find a way to help you over this. Instead, though, this friendship level that Jonathan shows is like, no, I'm going to go alongside and point him to Jesus. I'm going to point him to God and help God be the strengthener. And Jonathan didn't have to put himself in the position of God in David's life. And I think sometimes we do that. We put ourselves in God's position. We take on the entire mantle and responsibility of helping our friend and being there for our friend. And it's really daunting when a friend tells you something really hard, but when we are able to help them find strength in God and point them to God, we allow God to remain in the hero spot in their life. And then our friendships don't get out of whack. Our friendships don't cross boundaries that are hard to uncross down the road.
Yeah. How would you encourage someone that wants their friend to still feel seen, but also find strength in the Lord? How would you encourage someone to say, like, to not just give a solution of like, oh, God's got it, you're handled, but still allow space for vulnerability in that friendship?
I think, that's huge. I mean, I think one, praying with them. So not just being like, you get a text saying, hey, I've had the worst day ever, and just sending a text being like, find God,
Mm-hmm.
but instead like showing up and being there for them. But I think that's the idea, is that Jonathan didn't help David find strength in himself. He helped him find strength, not in Jonathan's comfort as much as that was there and present. Jonathan physically showed up, but at the same time, like pointing to that greater thing. So I think it still means the same ways we care for people, of showing up in times of need, providing, whether it's meals to make their life easier, doing things that remove the physical burden or whatever is going on in a situation. We can show up in a practical ways, like being the hands and feet of Jesus, but we can't be Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so I think being that representative that shows love, that shows care, that God uses our friendships to, wrap us in a hug that maybe feels like God's embrace on our life. But we still are the conduit of that. It's just creating that runway that at the end, they don't see you as the person that's going to solve their problem, make them feel better about themselves as much as your actions help, but that ultimately, by praying for them, by reminding them of who God is, regardless of what their situation is. And we can do that in a non-judgmental way. And I think that's the question to probably ask, is just like, how can I do that without making them feel like I don't care? And that it's just like, just pray harder, pray more. Mm-hmm. But showing them in the Bible, like opening up the Bible and being like, hey, like, look at this. Let's pray over this right now, that God would give you this and you'd feel this today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super good. So what we can learn from Jonathan, who showed up for David, is that in order to build better friendships, we must begin to cultivate vulnerability and trust, rejecting comparison and envy, which you spoke to a ton, which I think is really good. I think the the main focus of a friendship is vulnerability, is being able to share to the last 10% of what you don't want to share, the uncomfortable thing, the hard thing. And so questions that we can be asking ourselves to reflect on our friendships is, do your friends have your back? Can you be vulnerable with your friends? And can your friends be vulnerable with you? Are you someone that can be trusted as well? Can you fully trust your friends? Do your closest friends draw you closer to Jesus? I think that's a great indicator of what your community looks like right now. Is if I were to go to the 5 people in my life right now, would their first response be to pray for me or to give me encouragement, or what would their response be as well? I think that's really, really good. Do you have a personal time in your life, a story of when someone showed up for you guys in a time of need?
Oh, for sure. Well, I have a lot. I have a lot of those stories. I feel like one that stands out is when Taylor's mom was diagnosed with cancer early in our marriage, and we had some friends that sent us texts, and all those things meant a lot. But we had one knock on the door, and it was our friends Ryan and Ashley. Um, Again, shout out Ashley. She was already shouted out, but they knocked on our door. They brought us Sonic slushies. They hugged us, prayed with us, they cried with us, and then we watched YouTube videos and laughed for the whole night. And they showed up in that time of need, and they were friends that, as much as, again, I don't want to downplay like the action of sending a text in a time of need, but that knock on the door was like life changing for us, recognizing like this is who we want to be for people in our life as well. Do you have any examples from your own life?
Yeah, one that just came to mind as you were talking, which interesting because it is a text, but it meant a lot. As I was going through a difficult time, and I had sent in a group chat of friends of, hey, can you just be praying over this? This is a little bit of the situation, and I got a lot of texts back that said praying for you, encouragement verses. But I had one person in that group chat that FaceTimed me immediately, and she was like, let's pray. Like, I don't need to know the details, but let's just pray over it. And so it wasn't a knock on the door, but it was an immediate phone call of, I'm showing up for you. And then there was follow up after too of like, how did this go?
Yeah.
How did the conversation go? XYZ. And just that intentionality of, I maybe couldn't have shown up in the moment right then, but I showed up how I could, and that mattered a lot for me.
Yeah, no, that's so good. I feel like a lot of my best friendships that I have today have been forged in difficulty and trial. The amount of guys that I'm close to today that our friendship went to another level when a breakup happened, or like when the deep vulnerability happened. Like I've been with guys crying in a parking lot because something happened in a relationship, and that was like the moment that I felt like it went from, hey, we're friends, to no, we're like in it together. And so I think welcoming that, and then also another part of this I don't want to downplay is to reject that comparison and envy. Those are spoilers of all friendship. When we allow those types of things to enter into our relationships, and we look at other people's lives and we either hold something against them because of something they're feeling, or they do that to us, it is an intimacy crusher. And so to celebrate other people, and I feel like Jonathan did that. Like he rallied behind David. There's so many more examples of ways that Jonathan advocated for David. And I think that's the same way as we can advocate for our friends, even if they're in something that we wanted, even if they are the benefactor of something that we deserved, even if they have a relationship and we don't, and we want one, even if our crush asks them on a date. Like, all of those things are opportunities for celebration, for love, and for that covenant friendship, to really point to Jesus in every way. What's the third friendship in David's life we're going to talk about?
The third friend we see in David's life is Nathan, and he was a friend who was willing to tell the truth. And I know that can be hard sometimes in friendships, of just willing to say the hard thing. And so why is it important and to tell the truth to your friends, say the hard thing, and how did Nathan do that for David?
Yeah, I mean, it's so important because, again, this whole idea of Christ-centered friendship is he's at the center. And so we want our lives to look more like his, and we want to help our friends do the same. And so Nathan, the way that he did this for David is, there's the famous story where all of the men were out at war and David was at the kingdom, and he was on the roof, and he had spotted Bathsheba bathing on the roof. He called for her. He slept with her. She got pregnant. He went, oh no. He went to get her husband Uriah from the war. He came back. He tried to get him to sleep with her. He wouldn't, because he didn't want to be disloyal to the men that were fighting. So he sent him back with a death note to give to his commanding officer to put him on the front lines, to withdraw all the troops so that he would be killed. And then he took Bathsheba as his wife and made it all look like, I'm the hero. Like, she's pregnant now, but she's my wife, and all these things. He covered up his sin, and he was getting away with it. Like, he was totally getting away with it. And Nathan went to him and he said, what you are doing is not good. And he called him out for it. He called him to repent. He said, there is consequence coming for your sin. And David responded humbly. There was consequences to it, but David was known as a man after God's own heart. And I think that a lot of that is to do with the way that he responded to this situation. Like, you look at David's life and he did some dumb things, some bad things, some messy things, but yet God identifies him as somebody who is close to him. And I think Nathan, by putting his friendship on the line, or his life on the line, Nathan did not do the easy thing. He did the very hard thing. He fought for David's soul, not his personal gain. He put his own reputation on the line. David could have said, get out of this kingdom. You don't belong here. He could have had him killed. He could have removed him because of the threat he was to his reputation. Yet I think this goes to show the value of having truth tellers in our life that don't tell us what we want to hear, but tell us what we need to hear, and they do it in love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. What we learned from Nathan in this story is that in order to build better friends, we must be willing to tell and listen to the hard truth, or listen to the truth even when it's hard. And I think that that's really important, that we have to be willing to tell the truth, but we also have to be willing to take it, to listen to it, and to say, okay, like, they were willing to have the conversation that I maybe needed to hear that. Or I had a blind spot. I had a deaf spot, dumb spot. We talk about that a lot. I have a story that just made me think of this too, of someone in my life that we just had a conversation last week where it was my brother Matt. We love him so much, and he's willing to have the hard conversation every time. And he was just pointing out some things that were happening in my life, and he's like, I want you to hear that I want the best for you. I want the best life that God wants for you, and what is happening right now isn't the best for you. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, it was sad and I was upset and it was hard to hear, but at the same time, it was so rooted in love in the whole conversation. Like, I didn't walk away from that conversation being upset with Matt. I love him more. I'm like, I want to have even deeper conversations. Like, I know that you're willing to hear the hard thing, to say the hard thing, when I have it. And I think that's having a trajectory of growth in that, because we weren't always like that. That's been maybe in the last a year or two that we've been willing to go the extra mile, to say the hard thing, to not just, you're doing great, like, you're doing just good enough, but saying, hey, I see something in you that God wants more for that area in your life as well. And so, do you have any stories of times when someone was willing to point something out in your life?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I have stories on both sides. I have times in my life, and you listening probably do too, of people knowing that you're in the wrong, yet taking your side, defending you. And I mean, I think there's that piece of loyalty and friendship that you want to support your friend, but the truest friends, the best friends, recognize, especially in areas of sin and harm, that they say the best thing, the most loving thing is to tell you the truth. And I think that's something that is maybe difficult in our society, is love sometimes feels like it has to be full acceptance. So in order to love somebody, it means that I fully embrace, fully accept everything about your life. But I think in Christian friendship, love means I want what God wants for you, and I'm going to fight for that. And we do that in a loving way, just in the same way Jesus did with his disciples, with Jesus did with the woman at the well, that Jesus did with the woman caught in adultery, that he showed love, he showed up, but he also called higher. And I think that's the thing. And so a story in my life that stands out is, well, I have a lot of these stories, to be honest, because I've given a lot of permission to people to be honest with me. And sometimes it's hard. Pride gets in the way of actually hearing it and responding to it. But at the same time, my friend Steve in college, I was kind of in a relationship with somebody that wasn't bad, but it wasn't God's best. It wasn't great. And he sat me down and he's just like, what are you doing? And he wasn't judgmental. He just asked really good questions. Like, do you think that this is going to make you more like Jesus? Do you think this relationship is something that God's going to use to build his kingdom? Like, all these questions. And the honest answer was no. And it was that conversation that was really kind of eye-opening to, like, the thing that I want. And most of my friends were like, oh, great for you. You're in a relationship. That's awesome. Good for you. But I had this one friend that knew who I was, knew who I was called to be, knew what I was called to do, and said, no, I'm going to make sure that I love him in a way that is the open door. So I think that's huge in my life. And I think some of the questions that we can ask here are, do your friends call you out when you get off track? Do your friends tell you the truth even when it's hard? Proverbs 27, 5-6 says, better is an open rebuke than hidden love. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. I think that is so powerful. Like, wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. That person tells you, like, you're great. You're doing awesome. It's like my friend George, when I chipped my tooth playing baseball in his driveway growing up as a kid, and literally like half of my tooth is gone. And I'm like, I'm ugly. And George is like, you can't even notice it. And I looked in the mirror and was like, that's all you can notice. I couldn't tell you if I had 2 eyes or 3 eyes, like, but I had a chipped tooth. And that's what that means. It's like it produces more of the same thing in our life. Whereas a better is open rebuke than hidden love. Like, that hiding our love looks like telling you, hey, what you're doing is great, when we know it's sinful, when we know it's not what God's best is for you. But that open rebuke, that open, loving rebuke is what brings us closer to Jesus.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, do you want to give us a quick summary? So how do we be a better friend? How do we be a better friend to others and also help invest in our friendships today?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the big overarching thing here is that if you want to build better friendships, you have to be a better friend. We can't control what other people do and how they reciprocate, but if you want better friendships, learn to be a better friend. And so a few ways that we can do that is a friend who sees the best in people. We can be a friend that sees the best in people, like Samuel. And here's a habit to give you. Use your words to build them up. Call out things you see in them and use words to build up. We did anti-roast for a guy in college. It was so fun. We showed up, we surprised him at his house, we sat him down in a chair, and we just told him all the things we loved about him. It was so fun. But sharing words of appreciation for people is a way that you can build people up. Number 2 is be a friend who shows up for people. Be a friend who shows up for them. Be vulnerable, eliminate distractions, be together, but just be that loyal friend that helps them find strength in God, especially in the hard times. And number 3 is be a friend who tells the truth, like Nathan. Accountability, confession, and a habit that you can form is to practice confession and give permission for honesty. Find a friend, call them this week, today, don't even wait, and get together with them and just create the space and say, hey, I want this friendship to draw us closer to Jesus. I don't want any blind spots. And go first. Say, hey, this is something I'm struggling with. This is something I'm going through. And then give permission to say, hey, you can call me out. If you see me not living the way that I'm called to live, call me out on it. I need that in my life.
Yeah, so good. So good. Well, I'm leaving feeling encouraged and convicted and excited to go pursue friends in a new way and just learn how to show up for people. And so I'm super excited for all of you guys to just be a better friend, get more real, intimate, vulnerable, and showing up for your friends in your life right now.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you real soon.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed this week's episode. My main takeaway from our conversation about friendship is that I have to be a better friend in order to have better friends in my life. And so this week, I'm calling people, I'm getting it on my calendar, scheduling out time to get dinner, go on a walk, do something intentional with the people in my life. So I encourage you guys to do that too, and let us know what you're doing, if you're gonna invite a friend into your life this week, or how you're gonna be a better friend. You can submit questions about friendship or anything else you want to hear on the podcast at goingsomewherepod.com. And don't forget to subscribe, to leave a review and share it on social media so that you don't miss our next episode. As always, this is a resource out of Northview Church, and we would love to see you guys any Sunday. And with that, we're all going somewhere. We might as well go there together. Have a great week, guys.